I'm Lin-Manuel Miranda, and you're listening to Hard NOC Life.
Well, it's the NOC in full color, you see me? The Hard NOC Life, comics, movies, and TV. Yeah.
Hi, welcome to Hard NOC Life. I'm Dominic Ma.
I'm Brittany Monet.
Hi, Brittany. How's it going there?
Pretty good. I just set up my ring light today, so that's fun.
Oh, ring light?
Is that what it's called? The circular... It's a ring shape, so I mean the ring light. Where
For videoing yourself?
Yeah.
Or other people?
For myself. I'm gonna try to be better at actually, doing auditions and self-tapes and stuff like that.
Oh, great.
So... I wanted to have good lighting. And then when I did the live stream episode for the Black Lightning podcast, one of our second to last episodes, I didn't have a ring light. I just had this little tiny desk lamp light that I had. And so, yeah. So I'd need better lighting forever if I'm on camera again.
That sounds great. I mean, ring lights make all the difference. I mean, for those who don't know, filmmaking, a lot of the tricks are about bringing out the eyes and...
Mm-hmm.
On film sets, it's a big deal. The ring light is this huge thing, the size of a trampoline, just to create this circle of light that highlights people's eyes. But of course, recently they have more convenient home versions, and they do make you pop out in a way that's...
Yeah, I got a really big one, so mine is a huge...
Is it?
It's pretty big.
Pizza sized?
Yeah.
I don't have one. I'm envious.
I'm kind of broke now, but...
No, it'll pay off. It really makes you look awesome. I mean,
I posted a selfie on Twitter with it, so it does look great.
Yeah. It's one of the differences or tricks between film and theater. Mm-hmm. It's the classic old trick, just bring out the eyes in film, which you can't really do on stage in the same way. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. So it's July 4th weekend.
Yes.
You may be hearing this on July 5th or 6th. And we're about 2 weeks out from California reopening. So I haven't been hovering over the local health department website as much as I used to. But it seems like we haven't gotten into disaster yet. And people are definitely partying.
But the thing is, cases are rising. So if you're not following it, cases are rising because of the Delta variant.
Yeah.
So they're going back to they haven't enforced it, but they're going back to highly recommending that you wear a mask whether you are vaccinated or not. So be careful for anyone, just so you know, or if you live in California, at least don't be surprised if, restrictions go back because of the cases are rising. So just want to put that out there.
Yeah, no, it totally could happen. And so we shouldn't get too excited, although we're all very excited about being able to go outside and stuff and go to movies. I hope people don't think it's so just okay.
I've gone to the movies twice now.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did you see?
I saw Zola.
You saw Zola? Okay.
So for those who don't know, Zola is a movie that is based on the Twitter thread that Zola herself, her name is Zola Moon, tweeted about how she met this white girl when she was a waitress at Hooters, and how they fell out over a course of a few days, but they go on this wild, crazy adventure, and the movie is basically a live adaptation of her tweets on her own personal experience, and then they added some stuff for more dramatic effect, but it still had the same exact feeling one got from reading the thread, because I remember reading it and be this is absolutely wild. So it was really fun to see it on screen.
Wait, so can you synopsize it for me a little bit more? Zola is the person who's tweeting, and she worked at Hooters? Or
yes, so Zola was she's a black woman who was a Hooters waitress, and she also used to, I think before she worked at Hooters, she used to be a stripper and stuff like that, did a lot of sex work stuff basically, and which I think she still does sex work now today. But she happened to be this waitress for this white girl and some guy who maybe was a pimp or something, I don't know. But I don't remember the exact details of, like, her relationship with that guy that she's at with the restaurant. But the girl's, like, over-complimenting her or whatever. And she's like, yeah, we should, like, go dancing or something sometime. So she's like, oh, okay, sure. They exchange numbers. They end up, like, dancing, whatever. They have a great time. And then it's, like, a day or two after already meeting the girl. She's like, hey, you want to go down to Florida with me and, like, dance and stuff? And there's a couple of clubs where we can make bank and all this stuff. So Zola agrees to go with the white girl. I think her name is Stephanie or Jessica or something like that.
Stephanie or Jessica or something like that.
It's
that
one of those
likely.
two names. And they agree,
Really
and
sad.
basically, you know, she goes to Florida and all this stuff happens that Zola did not plan, and yeah. It's
Okay.
very wild. A24, like, either produced or distributed the movie. I don't remember if they produce or distribute, whatever they do. But it's an A24 film, so...
I'm just going to say, with all due respect, that sounds like a great movie that does not sound like a blockbuster. Were there a lot of people there?
No, there was not. But it's, you know, one of those smaller films that, like, most people are not gonna go see unless you are, like, you know, part of the film. And if you follow, at least if you follow the film industry, I would say.
Yeah.
So, or if you were very familiar with that Twitter thread and now know that they made a movie about it, like, yes, you're probably gonna go see it, but it's not gonna get everybody's attention, unfortunately, which it should, because it was a really funny movie.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah. No, I mean, those are the kind of movies I'm rooting for, you know, because those indie movies, like, want to have a theatrical presence. You know, I'm still in the school of, like, I'm not rushing out to go see a movie again, and I don't really care about the blockbusters because I know they're going to come out to one of the major streaming services anyway, but I do have concern for how the indie smaller movies, you know, what path they're going to take.
Yeah, I don't know if that one's going to be only in theaters, but I feel like the A24, the next film that's going to do pretty well is because a lot of people like him. Dev Patel's The Green Knight movie that he's in.
Yeah,
I feel like that one will do fairly well just because of, like, it's Dev Patel, so.
Yeah, and it looks real cool.
Yeah, but it's basically, they both did Zola and, like, A24, and then if you follow all their movies, they are also the people who did Hereditary and Midsommar, so, like, that's their whole, like, thing, so it's so funny, like, how very different Zola is from, like, those other three movies, but you could very much tell it was, like, an A24 film if you're used to their lighting and, like, certain things that they bring to their films, because I think Promising Young Woman is also, like, A24, so, like, yeah.
Yeah, they do good
that
stuff.
Vibe.
Right on. Well, speaking of someone with kind of a magical name who goes on a journey with a weird reflection of character, that's not a really good segue, but we have to start talking about the nerd stuff.
Oh,
We
of course.
also watched Loki this week, episode 4,
Yes.
which I believe is called the Nexus event.
It is.
What are your impressions of Loki, the Nexus event?
It felt so much like it was influenced by Rian Johnson's The Last Jedi, especially when you get to a certain scene. It very much mirrored the throne room scene to me in The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I really loved it. It really hit, like, everything that I like. There was some good romance, some good, like, you know, deception reveals, and, like, yes, I'm just all very much for what happened in this new episode.
Yeah, that was interesting. I mean, so the shot-by-shot comparisons were going around Twitter a little bit, and I saw that too. And it's very framed the same way. Spoilers, blah, blah, blah. But they end up in the throne room of the Timekeepers. We finally see them, or something like them, once. And they're the two protagonists, a dark-haired guy with kind of beautiful flowing hair and a shorter woman, and they're surrounded by goons, and it turns into a brawl. It turns into a sort of multi-directional fight with staffs and knives and all that shit. So yeah, there was, you know, it was set up very similar to the big lightsaber scene in Last Jedi. I'm still like, to me it evoked another thing, which is the scene from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy when they go to talk to Deep Thought, the old supercomputer. And I don't know if you know Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy at all. It's a little older.
I don't, I'm sorry.
Well, it's okay. I mean, like, I think they're going for that vibe in the whole Loki series, which is kind of it's a classically British science fiction comedy. And, you know, this basic premise is just that, it's a science fiction story, but everywhere in space has the same sort of aggravating bureaucracy and offices as they do on Earth. So all the jokes are in the same vein as they're in Loki. And Rick and Morty does that kind of joke too. Just like space bureaucracy.
Yeah, it's very much like Rick and Morty, Doctor Who, and, and to your point, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, all like in one, but Marvel.
Yeah, totally.
But it's done well. Like, I know there's a lot of times when people say, like, oh, it's like Marvel's spin on this, and sometimes for other people, like, it's not hitting that. I feel like Loki is the show that's actually, like, hitting those points for other people. Especially there's this one person I follow on Twitter who just, they don't like Marvel or the MCU that much, and they're constantly talking about how much they hate the MCU, and they actually really, really, really love Loki.
Oh, okay.
So I'm very surprised, but then, like, they've been saying that they've seen people who normally like the MCU not liking it, but I'm like, hey, I like it, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I haven't seen too many people complaining about it. The only person who I know is not fully on board yet is Keith.
Well,
but I don't know how he feels
about weird things.
But I don't know how he feels about, this episode, so.
I mean, this episode was a cool one. Another, I guess, big plot development, not unexpected exactly, but sort of see the sort of romantic attachment developing between Loki and Sylvie. And what do we think about that?
I'm on board with it. I mean, and there's some people who are like, oh, it's like shipping yourself. But, I mean, it's just like...
That's the funniest thing. It is like shipping yourself.
Yes, but, like, at the same time, I'm just like, okay, but, like, is Sylvie DNA-wise exactly, the Loki that we know, but just born, female? If that's, like, if that's what it is, or is it just like, no, Sylvie is actually not anywhere DNA structurally like the Loki we know. They just, that Sylvie is supposed to be a Loki archetype. Like that's the thing. We don't know if it's just these are Loki archetypes that they're going after, not necessarily actually, because then if you saw the, like, after credit scene, there was a black Loki.
Yeah.
So it's like, are they DNA-wise the same person? Probably not. So that goes to your point of, like, is it really shipping Loki with himself?
I mean, I don't think Asgardian DNA works the same as normal DNA anyway. And I think when Loki shapeshifts himself, I bet he has different DNA down to the molecule or whatever it is. I mean, whatever you want to debate the physics of that, but I think we can leave aside the grossness of, like, whether she's actually, like, related to him bloodwise somehow. That doesn't work because it's magic. It doesn't matter. It's magic somehow. Yeah. But I mean, conceptually, the idea that, Loki might finally find love, but he could only find love in someone who's sort of a reflection of himself, that is kind of hilarious.
That's very on brand, too. Yeah. It's so on brand. I don't know. There's people who are saying, like, it's incest, but I'm just like, but is it incest when it's yourself?
Yeah, that's not even incest. That's like it's like masturbation, honestly.
Yeah, yes.
But it's also like self-love, and those things are. And Loki has a lot of self-love, masked in his insecurities, which manifest in trying to control the world all the time. Mm-hmm. But it is hella funny, just because I mean, when what's his face, Agent Mobius brings it up, it's like. I was immediately thinking, well, would Loki even need to shapeshift himself to fall in love with another version of himself? Like, would Loki hypothetically just fall in love with someone who looked like Tom Hiddleston just because he's that vain and
probably
narcissistic? I mean, we all like Tom Hiddleston to varying degrees. Some of us a lot. Mm-hmm. So I just thought that was an interesting scenario. Like, I realized they made her a woman so it would look, quote unquote normal, but they could have a lot of fun with that theme of Loki just, like, creating ideal mate versions of himself.
Yeah, but I mean, Loki is still gender fluid, and they are still bisexual, even if they are dating someone who is, looks like, the opposite gender. Like, that's still, I don't know, right. People who are saying that it's not bisexual because he's not with Mobius or something. It's like, no, like, you're still bisexual if you are dating someone who is the opposite sex of you. Like, I don't understand
that's
what
half
people
of the bi.
don't. I know, I don't understand what people, like, you don't stop being bisexual because you're in a relationship that looks heterosexual. Like, that's,
Yeah.
that doesn't stop. I don't understand what people don't get about that.
I guess people are still very resistant to the bisexuality idea, which I don't get. I mean, because yes, they made it look like the most normative possible version. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, it's pretty well laid out that the Loki is a gender fluid and bisexual, like, force. I mean, he's the ultimate one.
Or even pansexual, if you think about it.
Because he can change himself into everything. I mean, he has no core gender, and that's what's kind of cool about it. But I think it also begs the question of, like, are we really just searching for someone who's just kind of like us? And how different would we make that person look if we had the choice?
True.
So what else caught our eye in this episode?
I really liked the different Lokis that we saw, though, when he is, because he gets zapped, as we know, at the end of the episode. There's an after credit scene, and we are seeing other Lokis there. And so we see a black Loki. We see I think they're calling him Croaky. It's the little boy Loki who's holding the alligator crocodile.
Aww.
You have the one that looks like old school comic accurate Loki costume, who was played by, I can't remember the actor's name.
Richard. I think he was also in Star Wars.
Yes,
he was one of the Empire guys, right?
Yeah, he was in The Rise of Skywalker, the last Star Wars movie that came out that a lot of people mostly don't really like. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't either. But that guy's fine. He's I think he's a sort of classy
he's a really
British
good
actor.
He was also in Doctor Who, by the way.
Oh, totally. He's got to be. Okay, great. Yeah, and he was wearing the sort of most classic Loki outfit, wasn't he?
Yes.
Very bright green.
Yeah, like,
big
it was
horns.
very much like old school comic accurate Loki. So it was very cool to, like, see that costume in some form in live action.
And also all the thing with I didn't watch it closely. There's an alligator, or is it a frog, or what is happening there?
The little boy's holding what looks like either an alligator or a crocodile, so that's why people are calling him Croaky.
Right. Awesome.
But I think writers confirmed his actual name, and everyone's like, yeah, okay, it's Croaky still.
That's good. Croaky Loki. Because some of us may remember at one point in the Thor comic books, Thor actually got turned into a frog for a good long time. And I think that's we'd all love to see that.
Everyone would.
So I like all these references to space lizards and crocodiles in it, or space crocodiles that are showing up in Loki in various ways. I was a little thrown off by the timekeepers bit because
they're not really there. So
they're not really there.
So either they are somewhere else and they have that room as, like, appearances and stuff, and they just talk through their like android robot things, or the timekeepers really are gone and Renslayer has been actually running things for a long time, and for appearances, like, she's been going over into that room to make it seem like, things are happening when she's actually the one controlling everything now. Which would further to me my idea that she's actually really Amora the Enchantress. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know, but we'll see.
Which makes her whole, like, sort of, friendly heart-to-heart scene with Agent Mobus possibly more insidious. I mean, if your theory bears out.
Yeah.
Because she's all, like, they're all, like, chummy in that scene, and there's this cute sort of romantic we always kind of got along kind of vibe. But there's also this thing where she's like organizing her trophies, which is kind of like something like an evil mastermind does. Do you know what I mean? Yeah,
I feel like Amora likes the kind of bumbling idiot type of guy because she likes Thor. She's in love with Thor. Like,
that's funny.
Like, in the comics, that's her thing. Like, she's so in love with Thor that but like, she's more personality wise, she's more like Loki and like evil, but she's totally head over heels in love with Thor. So it's so, like, it's so funny. I can see her, like, I can see a version of the Enchantress, like, being totally into Mobius and be like, yes. And you're just like, girl.
Oh, man.
Why are you so evil yet into this, like, good-hearted... I don't know.
Yeah. Well, but yeah. Mobius is kind of dopey, but adorable.
Yes.
I get it. Yeah, so we'll definitely see. I mean, I guess we're into the last arc of episodes.
Yeah, we
now,
have just
right?
2 more, basically.
Yeah,
Episode 5 and 6, and then that's it. But we'll see, because I know one of the producers or writers of the show did an interview saying that they could see potential for this getting another season. Mm-hmm. I know the writers of WandaVision said they don't plan to have done a season 2, so this so far is the only show that will get another show, most likely, unlike the other 2, because I know that we are going to see more of Sam and Bucky, but it's going to be in Captain America 4.
Yeah.
It's not going to be in a show from what we know of. I
mean, that's interesting. I could see that. I mean, Tom Hiddleston can carry a show, and you could kind of see him bumbling about the multiverse and the timeline in all these different ways. I mean that's one of the funny things about the Marvel universe having a big plan. What if one of their subplots becomes exciting enough to be the whole plot? I mean, do you know what I'm saying? I mean, they're definitely compacting a lot into this Loki series, which would in any other movie would be a whole string of movies.
Yeah.
Again, I wonder if it will branch off due to popular demand in some way.
I think so. A lot of people really like Tom Hiddleston, especially Tom Hiddleston as Loki, and I just feel like this is probably what he's going to be doing, because, even though the Night Manager, the show that Tom Hiddleston did, was very successful and well-liked, his career kind of tanked when he did that whole PR relationship with Taylor Swift.
Oh, right. I forgot about that.
Which, the only reason I'm bringing it up is because someone tweeted up the photos out today, and I'm like, people really don't realize how much that messed up his career, because he was trying to get considered for Bond, and I don't... because, they were trying to figure out what to do with James Bond a few years ago.
Right.
And he had said that's something he was interested in. And I know, producers had kind of came out and said, yeah, but he doesn't really seem to have any, romantic appeal. And not talking about fans, because he's never seen out dating anyone. And then, next thing you know, he's out with Taylor Swift. So a lot of people are just ew, no. Even people who weren't fans of, Tom in that way. People just... I don't know. They weren't.
Well, that's weird to me, because Taylor Swift is fine, right? I mean, she did she have a backlash from her fans because she was seen with Loki?
And the thing is, that did not impact Taylor at all, which is so funny. That whole little everyone knew it was a PR stunt, but it did not impact Taylor in any way. But for Tom, I think it's because a lot of people also assumed that he was just above doing stuff like that. That I think it really just went, ew, okay. And it's sad because it wasn't just fans of him, fans who were oh my god, I have a crush on him, I'm gonna marry him. No, it was literally anyone who just respected him as an actor was just all right, sorry.
Oh.
That's so sad. It did, it's the truth. After those photos happened and that relationship happened, he wasn't really working like he was, and he was had a lot of good momentum too.
What as a person who likes Tom Hiddleston is in their fan base, did you personally feel that way?
It felt very fake and forced, and you were just oh, all right, and kind of you're oh, I didn't think he would, obviously you don't know him personally, but it was very oh.
There's something about Taylor Swift specifically, if it had been with...
I think it's just
with
the
another
way
pop star, it might have been different.
And I think it was the way they went about it, where it just felt very forced and fake. And then he would just kept, instead of when you're dating someone, you don't call your significant other by their full name. Yes, Taylor Swift and I. It's no, you would just say Taylor and I, Tay and I, or whatever. And so it just really put in this whole oh, he's not even trying to hide that this is just yeah, it was just bad. It was bad for him, because obviously people still really like Taylor Swift, and Taylor Swift had no problem going forward. I mean, there's people who obviously have issues with her for other reasons, but that particular relationship did not impact Taylor and the way it impacted Tom. Yeah. It just really made Tom seem like he was too desperate to get that James Bond role, and just, yeah, it was bad.
Does that imply that James Bond wouldn't hook up with Taylor Swift? I don't get that logic either.
I think it's because
James Bond hooks up with anybody.
Yes, But I think it's because, like, it's like, okay, someone's saying you don't have a romantic appeal, and then you're like, okay, I'm going to show you that I do, and then it's like, oh.
But it's
not
a
hitting
sham,
it.
and it's...
Yeah, you know,
looks,
that's the...
forced.
Yes, and that's the thing. Even if it wasn't a PR relationship, the timing of it all felt like it, and I think a lot of people are just like, no. And then I think you had a really weird, like, acceptance speech at the Golden Globes, like, not too long after that. So I think people were really just like, all right, we don't know about him.
That's interesting. I'm fascinated by that, and I'm hoping for round 2. I'm kind of looking forward to a future war between the Marvel stans and the Taylor Swift stan base.
I don't think they're gonna have a fight. It's not like that. I
want them to have a fight.
You want them to have a fight.
I want to see what would happen.
Wow, I don't think so, because some people are both like me. I'm a both fan of Taylor Swift and Tom Hiddleston. But
people bring peace to the conflict. But I mean, the spirit of,
bring peace.
I'm just trying to posit Taylor Swift as some kind of, hidden antagonist in the Marvel universe.
Well, I know some people were fan casting her as Dazzler, so that's interesting.
Yeah, that's a little easy. I really like Dazzler. I hope Dazzler ends up in the universe at some point. I don't know if I'd have Taylor Swift as her. I was looking for a villain for her to play, but I can't think of it right now.
But no, I want to make clear I do like Taylor Swift, and I'm still rooting for Tom to do well, but yeah, that definitely, like, put a bad taste in people's mouth when all that happened back then. So that's why he hasn't really done much. If you've noticed, like, if people who followed his career, he was doing a lot of movies, even if they were, like, smaller indie films. He was doing a lot. And then it stopped. Yeah. And it wasn't like you think, I don't know, maybe unless he wanted to take a break and that's what it was, and, no one knew that. But it definitely all looked like that whole entire moment ruined his career for a bit.
But I think he's doing okay
now. I think he's doing good because he's doing Loki, and everyone is like, yes, and Tom Hiddleston, and people like, they remember how great he is now. So let's hopefully people keep that energy.
An interesting episode in PR type celebrity romances. Oh wait, which brings us to this might be the segue you were trying to get to that I just didn't pick up. The really obvious transition to there's some other news about sighting of some celebrities in a romantic engagement. Like I'm saying this because I didn't even see the picture, but can you tell us what happened in the Spider-Verse?
Yes, so Miss Zendaya and Mr. Tom Holland were seen in, I believe it was his car, because he looks like he was in the driver's seat. They were kissing, and yeah, it looked pretty, steamy. It looked like a good kiss.
Whoa, okay. So what do we think about Zen Holland, or Zendaya, whatever they're calling it?
I always saw that there was, like, a little bit of chemistry there between them, Well, obviously, that's why they were cast opposites of one another. But, really, like, felt like, okay, there's chemistry here. But for the longest time, they were saying they were just friends. And I believe that they were, just because she actually was dating someone else for a little while. And so I think it is I don't know if it's because they're spending time again together because of Spider-Man, that, like, they're like, oh, okay, or whatever. So I don't know if it's a PR stunt. I don't know if it is. I'm not mad at it, but, like, it doesn't feel forced if it is a PR stunt. You know what I mean?
Well, because that cast, that franchise is now really living off their chemistry, which is, I think it's one of the essential things to how the current Spider-Man works. And they are really cute together. Like, you saw those dance videos?
Yeah.
That is just, like, preciously cute. Tom tried to do the hip-hop thing, although I think he's more, like, classically ballet trained. Yeah,
but he can still actually, like, dance. You can tell, though.
Yeah, and Zendaya's, like, in her cool element. She's a really great dancer, I think. And that was just, like, so cute. So this was sort of my broader way of getting into the Spider-Verse, because it was interesting, like, when you said, PR plays. Like, some stuff leaked out this week about the upcoming Spider-Man movie, No Way Home. That still wasn't a trailer, but it was it definitely seemed like planted to start giving us these tidbits. So, to me, like, parallel with the Tom and Zendaya kissing thing, there was also some leaks on the toy front. The Lego set was previewed and saw he's going to have a black suit, a new black suit, probably not a symbiote suit. and a new gold and classic suit, and some sort of suit which seems like he's got part of Doctor Strange's costume on, or part of the like magical ornaments from Doctor Strange's world. And I just found this very interesting. And then there was, the thing of Zendaya and Tom making out somewhere, and that felt paired as if to give Spider-Man fans, something to think about before whenever this trailer comes out.
No, I haven't seen the actual, I did see a Doctor Strange. Is it a new Funko where it looks like he has like a shovel and everyone's like making a joke that he's burying it was Loki, Spider-Man, and someone else. Oh, Wanda. It's like Doctor Strange having to deal with everyone keep breaking the multiverse. Oh. And it was like him burying them or something.
Yeah, that must be quite a job. Everyone's breaking that multi shit all the time.
And I just love it. And they have the one of that lady who's like, it looks like she's trying to like mop the ocean. I don't know if you've seen that. She's like trying to push the water from going away. And then they're like Doctor Strange trying to fix everyone breaking the multiverse. So they keep making that joke with it. So, because we know that he's supposed to be in No Way Home.
Yeah, possibly a big part of it. Probably an Uncle Ben figure, and also probably the doorway to whatever multiverse breaking Spider-Man's gonna do.
Yeah, he's totally gonna, I feel like, as some other people have been summarizing, that he's gonna try and fix the whole reveal of his identity. Yeah. And in turn trying to fix that, he somehow ends up breaking the multiverse and at least meeting up with the other spider folk, because it's happening. It's gonna happen. That's what's going on. There's no denying that's what's happening in this movie. So
see, as someone who I think about Spider-Man movies several times a week, sometimes several times a day. And so I was thinking about our expectations of Spider-Man No Way Home, and I was remembering the problems with Spider-Man 3 in the original Raimi series, much notorious one of those movies. And one of the things, it had a lot of issues, that movie. One of the things that was weird about Raimi's Spider-Man 3 was that it tried to do a whole lot of stuff. It had, the Venom symbiote just sort of shows up, and what the hell? It's an alien, and also the Sandman origin story, and also the whole thing with Mary Jane, and also Peter Parker dancing because he's possessed by the weird alien suit, which we still don't understand. All this to say, it suffered from kind of a busyness of a bunch of Spider-Man plot lines going all at once. And so I think about that. I wonder, what do you think about this in terms of with all this expectation of every single thing that is rumored or probably happening in the next Spider-Man movie? Does it feel like where are they even going to find the time? Where's the place in the Spider-Man story if 80 people have to come in and cameo appearance? Yeah,
that's why I don't know if it's going to start off as him trying to like I said, save his identity, and then he somehow gets pulled, or they get pulled into his world, which I'm assuming that's what's going to happen. And then it's going to cause more chaos because it's there's 3 Spider-Men. I don't know if that's what it's going to be. And it's going to be well, now which one is which? Because they have a suit on and we can't tell. I don't know.
Oh, that'd be great.
That'll happen. And then also, it's the question, did the multiverse already break because J.K. Simmons showing up in the end of Far From Home? Is the multiverse already broken and it's all bleeding, it's already starting to bleed into each other, which we didn't know that, Because that was technically the first movie after, and it is the first movie after Endgame happened. Yeah. So...
And speaking of cleanup, it did a lot of cleaning up of that Endgame stuff, talk about the blip and all the gags about that.
Yeah, and also we know the thing that happened in Endgame was Loki taking the Tesseract when he wasn't supposed to. Yeah. So it's already, that movie could have already had the effects of Loki messing up the timeline, Oh,
okay.
So it could already have been things are starting to bleed into each other when they're not supposed to.
Oh, I think that's a cool concept. And it would be if it was at the opening of Spider-Man No Way Home, that problem was already happening. It's sort of...
Yeah. So, that could be it, unless they, don't have the same brain as me and didn't see that opportunity right there. But, that's what I would be doing, is it's already starting and I just don't see it. That's what I would have done. But, who knows? I'm just very excited to see Andrew Garfield back more than any of the previous Spider-Man. Sorry, Tobey Maguire.
No, me too. I'm with you. I mean, I'm still hoping for them to get back some of that vibe from the Garfield movies. Because, again, like I just rewatched Spider-Man Homecoming the other night just to revisit it. And again, I have pretty mixed feelings about it. I still am with Tom Holland because physically he's the best. And I think he's being directed to play really young. I mean, we see him as in interviews, he's an adult. He's a spazzy adult, okay? But he's an adult. And I think he's being directed to play, super young 15-year-old, I guess, to rope the kids. And so, I think I think that's a little bit weird, but that's just because I'm an old Spider-Man fan. And there's still things about that movie that rub me the wrong way. Spider-Man being scared of heights, just no. That shit is completely wrong. That whole Washington Monument thing totally threw me off. Spider-Man is never scared of heights. It's not his problem.
Well, it's Peter Parker, right? Wasn't it more Peter Parker being oh no, I'm scared to go up? Isn't that why he doesn't go up?
But to me, and I'm being the purest old ass fan here, I can't buy that. I just can't watch any Spider-Man movie where that's the problem. Because his whole thing is he likes leaping around from great heights and the freedom of almost flying.
Did you say it as Spider-Man or did you say it as Peter Parker though? Because there's a difference.
I don't think there's split personality like that.
Well, I mean, I can understand Peter trying to keep up the appearance of him being a wimpy nerd and being oh, I'm scared of heights, I'm not gonna go up there, guys.
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah, as a decoy move to pretend to be nerdy Peter Parker, yes. But no, he actually, Homecoming actually gets to the top of Washington Monument, and he's talking to his AI suit person.
Yeah,
and he's having anxiety attacks on the top of Washington Monument. That's the thing I don't get. That Spider-Man who is too spazzy and too nervous. Just dude, no, that bugs the purest fan in me.
Okay. I don't remember that. I haven't seen that movie in a while, so that's why I'm I don't remember if it was him saying it as Peter Parker or, him in the suit saying that.
Yeah, well, it's this whole thing. And I hadn't seen it in a while either. And I'm still not in love with how it's directed. But so there are weird, awkward things like that. But I will say, I think Zendaya kind of makes that movie. I mean, Zendaya and Ned kind of make that movie, which has always been an interesting dynamic to me because, well, for one thing, it's basically Spider-Man's brown friends are the most they're the most alive part of the movie. I feel like they, as actors, they took strong choices, decided to go with it because I don't think conceptually all the actors in the current Spider-Man gang are making a strong choice, or I don't know what the right word is. But anyway, they could be playing it like a very straight kind of teen angst kind of story. And I just think it's things like, Zendaya being a really snarky MJ that makes the whole movie.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think both Zendaya and Ned are... Oh, okay, I can't think of his real name. Oh.
Jacob Batalon or something like that. Yeah, I
think they're both really great, though, in their respective roles. Which, you said, I think they're some, the more... I think they, in some ways, overshadow Tom. But I think Tom is great. I think he's the best, honestly, out of the three we've had in live action so far. Yeah, I don't know. There's a soft spot in my heart for Andrew Garfield.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, how does that play out? What do you want Garfield to do again that Tom doesn't quite bring? I mean, for me, it's being slightly more of an adult, but
I think that's what it is. He feels a little bit more. He doesn't feel as infantilized, if that's the right
something word to like say. That. He's pretty infantilized,
and I understand it because he starts off as a teenager, and that's when I get it, but I feel that keeping him as a teenager forever isn't something that's always going to work for him, because I feel like he should be allowed to grow up and actually stay grown up. And I don't know, I feel that they should have done something very I feel like for some people say this is a crazy idea, but I do feel like the Spider-Man that we should have seen in Civil War should have been Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man.
That's a crazy idea, only that it would involve rearranging time, but go on.
No, not making. No, him. Would have always been there, but again, he's just not as well known of a superhero because he's maybe just a local superhero, whatever, you know. Not something that Tony Stark concerns themselves with, because honestly, with Tony Stark being arrogant and not being aware that a Spider-Man exists makes a lot of sense, because he's kind of, you know, that's what we've seen with the Robert Downey Jr. version of it. Like, he's an arrogant asshole.
Yeah.
So him kind of being like, oh, Spider-Man, we need someone, and he's deep searching, he finds like a local Spider-Man. He's like, okay, I can use this dude. But to me, it would make sense if we had Andrew Garfield, and don't hate me for this, but he ends up dying in the course of Civil War.
Okay.
And then that's how we get Miles Morales. There we go.
All right, there we go.
That's what I would have wanted. And I know there's some people who are like, oh, why? But
a very moving story that also leads us to the next progressive character.
Yes.
There you go.
We would have seen, maybe even have just a little glimpse of him, meeting whoever his MJ would have been, and blah, 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 very quickly in the Civil War movie. And,
Yeah, well, I mean, Brittany, Marvel loves their Civil Wars. They don't stop at just one in the comics.
They have two, yes.
Yeah.
But then I feel like now them going back and doing my idea, no, doesn't work. They had their chance. But this isn't to say that I don't love, like, Tom Holland, but I think it would have been nice to have seen Andrew Garfield come back and play with them, with, Chris and Robert, and then him. Because isn't there a storyline, though, where, like, Peter Parker actually does get shot and killed?
Yeah, I think he's died at least once, maybe twice.
I think isn't that part of actually, like, Miles's, like, thing.
Oh.
He sees the actual, like, Peter dying or whatever.
Right, because that was in the Ultimate Universe, which I didn't follow that much. Right?
I think so. So I feel like they should have done that, because, I don't know. But,
yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, like, and of course you're sort of speaking towards fast-tracking the live-action Miles Morales.
Yeah.
Appearing, which we gotta figure is going to happen one of these days.
It's going to happen because, I mean, you have his uncle in Homecoming talking about his nephew. Yeah. So,
yeah, right.
It's going to happen. We're going to see him. But, I don't know. I feel like I would it would hit me more emotionally with it being Tom being the Spider-Man to bite the dust like that.
Wait.
I don't know why, but I feel like it would be more, because I feel like when I look at Tom, I'm like, oh, that's a baby.
Wait, so you're saying it would be too much if Tom Holland died? Sorry, yes. I'm going through hypotheticals here. Okay.
I feel like it would really hurt my heart watching.
It would, because he does seem like a baby. But wait, he did die.
he did, and I cried. That was the only one that I was genuinely upset about dying. Well, right. No, I mean, dusting in Endgame. Yeah. Him and Black Panther were the only ones that I was like, no, but I knew that they were coming back, because I'm like, they're the new kids, they're coming back.
It was one of those comic booky deaths, like, it's not even like a gunshot, like you.
But it still hurt.
Disappeared into dust.
And then, Tom had to give that amazing performance and make it even more, like, hurtful.
Yeah, he played it great. I mean, but again, with emphasizing the very young kid dynamic, which makes your heart go, oh, you can't let this kid die? Oh my god, he's just like a sweet young thing.
Not to say I wouldn't be sad to see, like, Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man get, like, killed.
Well, I thought that's the argument you just made, was that, like, but you could slightly more handle it if Andrew Garfield...
Yes, I could slightly more handle it, but I really do love Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. I think he really is, like, the perfect... I feel like he really is the perfect mix of, like, what people are trying to say, oh, well, there's different when he's Spider-Man, he's different when he's Peter Parker. I feel like he is really, like, he did it so well. And I don't know, I would love to see him a little bit older and, just still being Spider-Man, and maybe actually, he'd be out of college, I would say, by now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's the one who really did that strong emotional loss arc, because was Gwen Stacy dies in the second one.
Yes.
I mean, I think of the movie ones, he's the only one who's had that. Well, I mean, of course there's Uncle Ben in the original, but I think that was the one where they most strongly dealt with a deep personal loss in, like, Spider-Man. having angst about that for a long time. Emo Spider-Man again, but in a good way. I mean, emo in a good way.
Yeah, no, I'm just very curious as to what they're gonna do. I would really love it though if they kind of let Andrew Garfield come back again even after this appearance in No Way Home. Just because I feel like, I don't know, I feel like he should have got his third movie. I still feel that very much, that he should have got his third film.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I mean, I'm one of those people who won't be sad if Andrew Garfield comes in as Spider-Man for the whole movie. But we know that's not going to happen. And we shouldn't set ourselves up for too much disappointment, because that's probably not going to happen.
As long as he has longer screen time than Tobey Maguire, I'll be fine.
You know, people are going to be clocking that screen time, like...
Oh, yeah.
Like, very scientifically. Like,
they always do.
Their battles, yeah.
They always do, yeah.
But yeah, and it was another of those things, like, I think Andrew Garfield's doing okay, because, as you mentioned, he's in this upcoming movie with Lin-Manuel Miranda. But yeah, it was that thing of, like, sort of, like, getting cut off before your natural arc. Mm-hmm. And, yeah, it'd be great for him to come back and possibly die. And then you can have it both ways. Except... because we'll have a Spider-Man dying, but it won't be Tom.
Yeah.
I bet one of them dies.
I mean...
Now that we've been talking about it, I believe one of them will die.
One of them will die, and to make people feel really upset, because I know other people are going to be more upset about this than me, it should be Tobey.
It totally should be Tobey.
Because that's the emotional gut that most people are going to feel. I know it.
For most people, it's going to hit them even harder. They're going to get the most tragedy bang for their buck. I
feel like we're like the Game of Thrones writers right now, being like, who can we kill that's going to really upset everyone? What's going to be the most, like, let's add to it? You know, I mean, Robb Stark was actually 15 in the book, so how do we make it worse in the... Let's kill his pregnant wife, too. Yeah, that works.
Oh, yeah, God, yeah,
we got it. Even though she's not dead in the books. Let's do that. Like, that's how I feel right now. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Right. And but so by that logic, like, one Spider-Man is dying is kind of a big deal. But Maguire, probably that would be the worst one, and thus the one that they should do. And the one we would be okay with, because then maybe Garfield will live again. I'm sorry, Tobey Maguire, you did fine. I mean, we're not saying what we hate on.
I feel like
Maguire.
Tobey is really fun and very campy Spider-Man, and he's fun. But I feel like when they started realizing that you can kind of actually make superhero movies a little bit serious and still be good and not like laughed at, I think is when we had the Amazing Spider-Man. And it was really good.
Yeah.
So I feel like, you know, especially after The Dark Knight Rises, I think there was this like, oh, you can do superhero movies a little bit serious and be good and give out decent performances and all this stuff. So I feel like that was the turning point for superhero films. And then, you know, right. So I feel like that's why I personally like Andrew Garfield's a little bit more, because it's like, it feels more serious and like they're actually taking the material seriously, you know, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, right, we remember in the climate of the time, The Dark Knight was like the alpha superhero movie in the room. Mm-hmm. A lot of people were like, oh, you know, dark, shadowy, gritty textures. And some people comment that was what the Amazing Spider-Man series was trying to do too much, to a fault. And I think they did it effectively, but that was kind of like the chatter around it at the time.
Yeah, and I think, again, it's just because people will forever see Peter Parker as a hopeful teenager.
Yeah. And
I think that's why that version of Spider-Man will never be fully accepted by everyone, is because he's not the hopeful teenager in that film. He's not. He really, even though he is a teenager when it begins, he's not a very, I would say, hopeful in the sense that we see Peter Parker, but I feel like he's a realistic Peter Parker. You know, like if Peter Parker actually existed in the real world, he would probably more likely be Andrew Garfield's version than anyone.
Yeah.
And I don't think people want to accept that.
How sad will you be if it turns out that Andrew Garfield is only in this movie for like 1 minute?
I
Like, they
think
just show up in the universe and, like, have a chat, and then he's gone.
he's just gone, and then the rest of the time it's with Toby. I would be like, this is my personal hell. And, you know, I think I'm not gonna lie, I feel like I always have, like, that little bit of resentment, because I did audition to be one of the kids in the trolley in the first Spider-Man movie. Yeah, I auditioned. To be one of, you know, in the part where Green Goblin makes him choose between saving Mary Jane or all the kids in, like, that, like, trolley thingy or whatever.
Oh.
I auditioned.
You auditioned to be one of those best kids?
Yeah, and at the end of your audition, they ask you who's your favorite superhero. Mm-hmm. And I did not have a stage mom or a stage parent, whatever, to be like, this is what is going to happen at the end of your audition. This is what you should say. You should say Spider-Man. So I answered this genuinely, and at the time, 10-year-old / 11-year-old me's favorite superhero was Rogue from X-Men. And the casting assistant who did my audition did not know who Rogue was. And she was like, who's that? Oh. And me being very, like, I don't know, what's the word? But I was just
young
and very, like, how is this lady casting a superhero movie and not knowing who all these other superheroes are? Like, I was offended to the core.
Oh, yeah.
Like, 11-year-old me, I don't
as
know.
a reasonable fan would be.
Yes, I was just like, she's from X-Men. Like, and she was like, oh, what does she do? I'm like, she touches people, and she can, like, basically take all, like, their best qualities away. Like, you know, I was explaining to her, so we're easy enough, and she was just like, oh, okay, that's great. And I was just like, this lady is stupid. Like, that's and I'm so sorry
I don't know who Rogue is. Everyone knows who Rogue is.
I'm so
casting
sorry.
Lady.
I'm so sorry to that casting lady.
I hope that's not the main thing that got you not cast as one of the kids in Spider-Man.
It probably was, because I think you knew, like, I felt, like, I think my face probably showed it, that I was so, like, this lady is dumb.
Yeah,
like,
okay,
even though I
true.
didn't say it to her face, I was just like, that's what I was thinking, and, you know, 11-year-old me was very angry.
Yeah, actors professionally, you don't have to be a suck up, but you also don't make the casting person think you think they're stupid.
Yeah, but I was
a little
like,
tip.
It's probably worse that I was a kid, and she was just like, this is like bratty ass kid being mad. I don't know who this superhero is.
That's funny. I mean, yeah, and of course the other side of it being like, professionally, you should have said Spider-Man just because that's what you're there to.
Yeah, but
like whatever your actual favorite is.
But I didn't know that. I was a kid, you know. But still, and I could have also truthfully maybe given a terrible audition on top of that. But you know, I don't know. But I don't know how I auditioned. I'm not gonna sit here and say like I gave an amazing audition, because I probably didn't. But because it was like the first thing I actually like legitimately auditioned for as a kid. So
That's classic. Wow. Oh, so yeah. And so, you know, psychologically this is played into your feelings about
Tobey Maguire.
Raimi.
Yeah. Because I lady didn't know who Rogue was, and I will forever think about that.
So that whole trilogy sucked.
Yes, no.
No, Rogue was. Yeah, and it wasn't the kid he saves. He saves both of them, doesn't he, somehow? I can't even remember now.
Yeah, he somehow saves both of them. I recently watched it with my little brother, and I don't think he even knew that story, too, because I told him the story, and he was like, why did you say Rogue? And I'm like, I don't know! No one told me that they were gonna ask who my favorite superhero was. And
and not know any superheroes.
And then the lady not knowing, like, yeah, that's... And I think because also, like, didn't the X-Men movie had come out, like, the year before the Spider-Man movie?
Yeah, they were, like, the alpha super movie.
I think that's why I was very confused as to, like, how she didn't know Rogue, because I'm like, okay, this movie just came out, and, like, the cartoon has been around forever. So I was just, like... I was very baffled. And, you know, if that lady somehow happens to stumble upon this, I am so sorry if I was really rude to you. But 11-year-old
I bet it was a learning experience for everybody.
Yes, 11-year-old me was very offended. So she took that very to heart that you did not know who Rogue was. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of young women like Rogue based on the X-Men presence in the 90s. I mean, that is, speaking of branching universes, that is such a fabulous story, and we'll have to
I feel like
wrap it up there. Yeah,
but I do feel like if I ever like actually, you know, make it in the industry, that audition is gonna surface. I know it is.
It totally should.
It is.
I mean, yeah, who knows? Maybe
It's going to.
maybe you'll end up being saved by some Spider-Man in some future movie. Probably not Tobey Maguire, because karmically I think you've played that card, but maybe another one.
Maybe my dream, it will work out and I'm in an Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movie.
Okay.
I don't know.
And if, the universe aligns and you're in this audition, and at the end, the casting lady, now 20 years later, and there's a zillion more superhero movies, asks you what your favorite superhero is, what do you say?
Spider-Man. Hey.
Yeah, totally.
No, I'll say Spider-Woman.
Right. That's a pretty hip answer, too. At least then she'd have context clue to be like, if she does it, like, oh, Spider-Woman. Like, I think Rogue, like, don't know if I'm remembering this right. I don't think they even call her Rogue in the X-Men movies. I think you have to become a fan to find out that's her codename. So maybe people didn't know.
Yeah.
Just didn't know that Anna Paquin character was also called Rogue in the comics. But I'm not sure.
But yeah, that is 11-year-old me embarrassing myself now. But it's a fun story to tell.
That explains a lot. It's a fascinating story. Well, great. So what's nerd popping this week?
Nerd popping for me. So I watched last night The Fear Street Part 1. I think it's 1994 is the year for what it's called, because each movie has like a year attached to the title. So yes, it felt very much more like it was paying tribute to 90s slasher films and like 90s like scary movies and stuff like that, more than it was like a tribute to the Fear Street books. Because they do mention a character that is in the Fear Street books, or a part of the Fear Street mythology, I would say. But it very much to me felt more like a 90s, like, scary movie tribute versus a Fear Street thing. But it was fun. It was really fun. My friend who I watched it with was like, because we watched it on Discord.
Oh,
because you can like stream stuff through Discord or whatever. So like they were able to set it up through like where they went onto their Netflix account and like was like streaming it, whatever. Even though I have Netflix myself. Even though I was like, we could do Netflix party watch, but I only did it once, so I forgot how to do it. So that's why we watched it on Discord. And then he was like, this felt like a 90s like time capsule. Like it was a very fun like film to watch. I would say if you aren't familiar with the Fear Street books, you'll probably have fun in watching it. But if you're like me and know them, just know that it feels more like a tribute to the 90s films of that time versus like, an actual
I'm not familiar with the books actually, but I mean, go ahead and, school me on it. I mean, the books were written in the 90s?
Yes.
Or they just recall the 90s?
They were written in like definitely for sure like 90s, and they if you all look at them, a lot of them look like the covers, like the original book covers, they look like more like 80s slasher film type of like a vibe, but most of all the books took place in the 90s, and they all somehow involve the street Fear Street, which at the very end of Fear Street is this old big mansion that is creepy looking and no one really goes near it. And so basically a lot of bad like supernatural things occur in this town, and the hot spot for it happens to be Fear Street itself. So
alrighty.
Yeah. But there's a very nice, which is a reprint of the Fear Street saga, but they did it all in one, and it's actually 3 books. And you can read that, and it's actually about how Fear Street became to be what Fear Street is. And that's where the character Sarah that they mention, Sarah Fear, that they mention in the movies, that's like where she comes from.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's a very, that is one of my favorite things that R.L. Stine has written, is the Fear Street saga, and it goes back to like the Salem witch trials era to, I think the last book takes place in like
in Massachusetts? No.
Early 1900s at the end when it gets to it. So the Fear Street saga is about how it became Fear Street, and then the movie is just like different little, I don't know, some of it may be a nod to different like little books. I didn't read every single book because there's like over 50 actual Fear Street books.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So there's like actual like 50 Fear Street books, and then the Fear Street saga is about how Fear Street became Fear Street. So it's like a separate, it's like a prequel based series basically to the actual like Fear Street books.
Okay.
So yeah, it's very fun.
And the movies are streaming in theaters or just streaming?
Netflix. It's on Netflix.
Just Netflix.
Just streaming. So the first one is, I think, 1994, which I said that one feels very much like, a 90s slasher film. And then the next movie, which is going to be part 2, is going to take place in 1978, I believe. And then part 3 is going to take place in 1666.
Right on.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Cool. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up around
You
there.
don't have any nerd popping stuff for you?
Oh, do I have a nerd popping? Oh, I didn't even think. I forgot about that part. I don't really have a nerd popping except to wish everyone a very safe July 4th weekend, because I do want to go see a movie in the theater at some point, but I don't want to that bad. So, like, like Black Widow's coming up, and I
No.
probably...
No.
Yeah, okay, you're really down on Black Widow, right?
I'm kidding. If that's what you want to see, go see it. Have fun.
I'm using that as an example because it's the movie I'm totally on the fence of it. In a normal world, of course I see that movie just to be, completist about the movie, about the Marvel stuff.
I think,
But
truthfully,
because I
I
don't
would have
really
too. I think, truthfully, I would
yeah.
too. If the COVID wasn't such a huge thing, even though I've gone to the movies twice, I
Yeah.
think that I would be
And
more...
good for you.
I would be more accepting of going to see it if we were in normal times. But even before the pandemic happened, I was still like, I don't know if I want to see this.
Right.
Even though I really like everyone else in the movie, I was still very like, I don't know if I want to see it that much, But
I want to see all the Russian accents because I just think they're funny. But still, again, like, because I don't want to see it like super bad, like I could skip it. But then I'll have this little hole in my Marvel knowledge, so I have to think about that. Because if there's any question with COVID and the pandemic resurging, I'm not going to risk it for a movie I kind of want to see. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I have to like pick my spots, and like the next spot to pick is Snake Eyes. And I'm sorry, Keith isn't even here, but I don't even know if I want to risk it for Snake Eyes unless like totally sure that we got through July 4th weekend without pandemic resurging. And then the next one after that would be Shang-Chi, and it's like, yeah, I guess I gotta see that one.
I'm seeing that one because that's the only one that... Also, that's the only first MCU movie back that will be movies only.
Right. So you really just have the one option there.
Yes, unless you're going to do it through other means. But
Right.
I'm going to actually go physically pay for my ticket for Shang-Chi and going to see it at theaters. But yeah, I know with Black Widow...
All this conditional, like, if everything goes okay.
Yes,
you know
assuming everything is back on track and we can go to the movies still by then. Yes, that's my plan, to see that in theaters. And I know for people who are on the fence about wanting to go to the movies or not, if you have the money, you can pay the premiere fee, $30 for Black Widow.
Right. That
But
if
you and your friends chip in it, like if you all like pay like if you guys pay like $5 each or whatever, like there you go. Like that's the movie, and it's technically cheaper than you would normally go see a movie for, especially in Southern California, because it's like 18 something to go see. It's like $15 to $18 just to pay for a movie ticket here in Southern California. That is not to pay for your snacks. That is just the movie ticket.
Your freaking $9 popcorn.
Yeah. So like, people in California, that's like paying for Black Widow on Disney Plus is like paying for 2 movie tickets. So
yeah, which is still weird. And I mean, I'm still gauging the the risk assessment of this going to movie things, and it's going to be determined by like how bloody bad I want to see a particular movie. It's not.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the interesting calculation I got to make.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I did pay for Mulan on the Premier Access and as well as Raya.
Yeah, but then we really had to. It was there weren't other options.
We really had to, kind of, but also for me, it was just like and my family's gonna watch it too. So it's worth it, because if like, back when my parents were paying for all of our movie tickets and all of us were going to the movies, it was me and my 2 little brothers and my parents, like that was like, easily 50.
True.
It was easily like $50-$60, and it's probably
True.
even more now for a family of 5 to go to the movies. So I know for some people are like, oh, the Disney Premier Access isn't worth it, but like for families, yeah, that is definitely worth it. The $30. It is, because it's cheaper, especially if they can be like, oh, we can make food at home and watch the movie.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, the $30 for a lot of families to see Black Widow is gonna be worth it. So, I'm gonna be honest, Black Widow's probably gonna do decent at the box office and do well. So
Oh, we'll see. So, I mean, party safe, everyone, so that you can earn the right to pay $20 a head for a movie theater ticket again, if that makes
yes, if you feel
sense.
safer that way, whatever. I don't know. It's up to y'all, whichever you want to do. Just be safe, as Keith, oh my God, wow, I'm losing it. Dom said. And happy birthday, Dom!
Oh, thank you, Brittany.
Thank you.
Yeah, born on the 4th of July, like almost Tom Cruise, who turns out to
exactly
have been
like
born on
Captain
July
America.
3rd, which is weird, and exactly like Captain America. Brittany, how can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter at Hi Brittany Monet, as well as Instagram and all that. And you can check out, which we have not recorded an episode yet for the Naomi podcast, but you can follow Naomi Podcast at Naomi Podcast, which is going to be about the DC character Naomi, which that account used to be the Black Lightning Podcast account. But yeah, that's where you can find all my stuff.
Good repurposing. I'm Dama, Dommah, on Instagram or Twitter. We also invite you to subscribe and like and comment on this podcast, and to check out the Nerds of Color blog and also our YouTube channel. Please subscribe and like there if you like this kind of thing. And that's the short version of our Nerds of Color credits. And until next time,
Dancing through life.
cool.
This is the hard knock life, but not the chicken kind. More like the people.